it's going to open up Pandora's box. But I will say this. I do believe players that sign now, like Najee, should not be eligible now, but should have to sit out and come back in next year. It's just a slippery slope. And I agree with people like Tom Izzo. I don't like it at all.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
OK Dubs has to go back to his roots. I'm not a Jets fan, I'm not a Giants fan, and neither one of those teams even play in New York. But I'm a New Yorker through and through, despite where my mail gets sent. And I will not stand for the Jets to be dragged through the mud in this way. Not going to happen. So Dante Moore, if you do leave, you should be so lucky to fly the plane.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Loop, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
The Steelers get their touchdown, and they miss the extra point. It was Lamar Jackson who made the plays to get the Ravens into what should have been easy field goal territory. So explain to me how in the world we can look at last night's game as, well, there you go, can't trust Lamar Jackson.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Good afternoon, happy Friday. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. One team has punched their ticket to the national championship in South Florida. It's going to be a home game for some. Also, we'll check in on the latest sports wagering and news with Legal Sports Report's Sam McQuillan. John Lafayette is here for the latest in news in sports media. Mike Blewett is getting ready for another big weekend of the NFL. He'll weigh in on some of the picks, and Bill Bender will talk about what we can potentially expect in tonight's college football semifinal. That and a whole lot more on this edition of the show. But let's get started. I would say it was an all-time classic college football playoff game, but considering the college football playoffs are only a few years old, I don't know that we can actually do that, but it was fantastic. Last night's game in the second half, 5 different lead changes, ending at the end of the game when the University of Miami's quarterback Carson Beck ran in the game-winning touchdown, and wouldn't you know, the Hurricanes are headed to the national championship game. They will play in less than 10 days on a Monday night in the stadium that they play their home games as they defeated Mississippi. It was a wild back-and-forth affair. Lots of offense in the second half. Lots of mistakes, ironically, by the University of Miami to still come out on top, but they certainly will take it. Their national championship appearance, first time in almost 20 years. Here's Mario Cristobal on overcoming mistakes to get to the title game.
You know, honestly, I don't. Football isn't complicated. People are. And I think when you start jumping off sides and get some of these pre-snap penalties, you complicate things for yourself. I think it's the simplicity of these guys. They know exactly who they are, and they know what it took to get us to this point, and they were not settling for getting to this point just to get here. 1-0 was the objective, and they weren't going to let anything get in the way. So all they did was do what they do every single day on a Green Tree practice field, and did it to an elite level to finish the game. Again, I can't speak more highly or proudly enough of them and their resilience.
Man, I mean, what an unbelievable year, and it was never easy. You know, it was never perfect. There was a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of adversity that not only I faced individually, but that we faced as a team, and we really banded together and showed that we believe in connection, that we don't just fake it, that this team is really a family. And if our team really wasn't like that, I don't know if this win happens tonight. You know, we really band together, we believed in each other, and we never flinched in the face of adversity.
Meanwhile, storybook season for Mississippi comes to a close. Of course, Lane Kiffin left the team as head coach to go to LSU. Pete Golding took over from that point, and they made a heck of a run, coming up basically just about 30 seconds when you think about it, probably short of getting to the championship game. So here are the silver linings from Golding, the new Mississippi head coach.
I can't tell you how proud I am of this group. They never panic, they never flinch. They're led by special young men. Two of them are sitting up here, and I remember looking at them at halftime and just looking in their eyes, and they didn't panic. And we had been here before, and we didn't make enough plays when we needed to. From a coach's standpoint, we got to find a way to put them in better position late in the game and close it out. But super proud of this group. This is a group that created this legacy for this team and an expectation for this program that. What I told them in the locker room, that we're pissed off in a semifinal game because we feel like we should have won the game because we didn't play our best and we didn't coach our best.
Just for us to have the season that we had, it's just, unbelievable. And, we can't do it without TJ or anyone else, and the offensive line and PG and just everyone involved. I mean, to see Keywan do what he does is just special. And, he's probably the best running back I've ever played with. You can do whatever, and you can, achieve things that you wouldn't even think that you could achieve. And this year has taught me that, and I've just learned a lot, and I've created a lot of good relationships and connections, throughout the season, and I'm truly grateful for that.
Chambliss wants to play another season of college football. I got news for you. Probably could go in the NFL draft to be picked high. We'll see if he changes his mind. All right, tonight, Indiana takes on Oregon. The winner of that will play the University of Miami in the national championship game in Miami Gardens at Hard Rock Stadium. Indiana 3.5-point favorites tonight against Oregon. That's the current line. As you can see there, the total is 48.5. We'll get a pick, of course, coming up from Bill Bender of Sporting News. Meanwhile, the Miami Dolphins don't have a new head coach, but they do have a GM. Today, it was made official. The Dolphins are plucking John Eric Sullivan away from the Green Bay Packers to be their new general manager, and he will be responsible for hiring the new head coach. There are reports that say that Troy Aikman, a consultant, had a lot to do with that hiring there. Rome Odunze will be back for the Chicago Bears when they take on the Green Bay Packers Saturday night. We'll preview the game coming up in the sound off. Ohio State's linebacker Arvell Reese has decided to enter the NFL draft. And some tough news from the world of snowboarding and the Olympics, as Chloe Kim said Thursday that she took a fall in training and dislocated her shoulder, which threatens her chance to play in the upcoming Olympics. She's trying to become the first action sports athlete to win 3 straight gold medals, but we'll see if the injury doesn't allow her to do that. Have to have a decision coming up here in February. All right, in the NBA last night, Minnesota beats Cleveland 131-122, so they win. They cover the spread. Nice game for Anthony Edwards as well, as Edwards becomes one of the youngest players to get 10,000 career points. LeBron and Durant, of course, ahead of him. Both are headed to the Hall of Fame. Here's Chris Finch on the distribution. The teams did a great job getting the ball to everybody.
Just making the right play, keeping it simple. Ant with 9 assists, Julius with 8. That's always going to be a recipe for success for us. But I thought they did a really good job of, kind of drawing a crowd and getting off of it. And guys stepped up and made shots. We turned it over. I thought a little too much. We haven't been turned over first half, but in the second half we only had 7. But for a long time there till the end, we really only had 2 or 3 turnovers in the big run that we had. So that was key.
I thought we did a pretty good job getting in the paint and getting 2 feet in the paint, and maybe didn't finish as great as we wanted to. And then again, 11. I think we're 11 for 33 from 3. Just got to shoot it better.
Indiana Pacers yesterday won a game. I know, it feels rare. They beat the Hornets 114-112. Hornets were 4.5-point favorites. Rick Carlisle, by the way, becomes the 11th coach in history to reach 1,000 wins. Joined some very elite company, and Carlisle weighed in on that after the game.
I'm pretty sure all the guys on the list are guys that I know well. I came in as a head coach in 2001 when a lot of those guys were still coaching and coached against a lot of them for many years, and I have such great respect for all of them. Lenny Wilkins, who recently passed, was the former president of the Coaches Association before I took over in 2005. I've passed the torch to J.B. Bickerstaff, who's now the new president as of 8 days ago, and he's going to be an amazing leader for us. Riley, Phil Jackson, George Carl, Rick Adelman. These guys are all, they weren't just competitors. They became friends of mine over the years. And I've missed some Doc Rivers, who's right up in the Hall of Fame ballot. It's time to get him in the Hall of Fame. And so, hey, I'm just very blessed.
Jazz beat the Mavericks 116-114. They snap a 5-game losing streak. Will Hardy, head coach of the Jazz, happy with that outcome.
Our defense tonight, I thought, was great. We had some really long stretches where we guarded the paint well. The fourth quarter, they only had 4 paint points. And then we only had 9 turnovers, and you end up winning the possession battle. And that gives you a chance to win on nights when you're not your best in terms of shot making. And I think it's a good example for our group of things that we can try to focus on every single night so that we're not just reliant on shots going in.
I don't think it's tough. I think it's just that's our norm. With injuries or sickness, we lose guys, next guy up. And so just understand, I thought Ryan did a good job for us. Caleb did a good job. Clay did a great job, his 900th game to come off the bench and gave us a spark.
Is Utah going to be one of those places for Cooper where he just knows that this is a building he plays well?
Yeah, he does play well. I thought he was, he was great. He got great looks, made some plays for his teammates. Again, he was big for us offensively, and he got us going there in that second quarter right before half.
We'll be joined by Bill Bender of Sporting News next on the play. Maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Loop, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
They have one more win than Chicago, and they literally beat Chicago in Week 17, and yet the Niners are on the road and the Bears are at home. Why? Because of an outdated rule that says, well, winning your division is the holy grail. Rewarding an 8-win division winner with a home playoff game is like giving the corner office to the guy who won the office fantasy pool instead of the guy who actually closed the accounts all year.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
It's going to open up Pandora's box. But I will say this. I do believe players that sign now, like Najee, should not be eligible now, but should have to sit out and come back in next year. It's just a slippery slope. And I agree with people like Tom Izzo. I don't like it at all.
College basketball today. Only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Bill Bender, in less than a week, is going to be headed to sunny South Florida to check out the national championship game that features a team from sunny South Florida. The Miami Hurricanes are headed to the national championship. What a rare occasion for a team to play in their home stadium for a national championship. Really cool. Bill, thanks for coming on the show once again. And boy, I tell you, I was watching that game, as I'm sure you were and many others, thinking, I don't know who's going to win. Like, it was back and forth. Like, right up until the final play of the game, Mississippi certainly had a shot to win. If they had 10 extra seconds, I think they may have ended up winning that game. And, a lot of different storylines from this one. in particular, did Miami play that well? Probably not, right? Like made a lot of mistakes and a lot of penalties. Probably have to play better, I would assume, to win the national championship. But my gosh, we got to give this team some credit at some point. They probably thought they weren't going to get into the playoff. They did. They won 3 games, and here they are on the verge of a championship.
Yeah, and it felt like, obviously you mentioned the penalties, 10 penalties for 74 yards, borderline second half collapse, dropped 4 interceptions, and yet they did everything right too. 51 rushing attempts, controlled time of possession. Carson Beck leads the game-winning drive. Some great plays by Malachi Toney mixed in there all the way through. And they, we can debate whether or not that last play was pass interference. They never called that on game point. And the bottom line is the Hurricanes, the number 10 seed, have given the college football playoff the feel of March Madness. Number 10 seed only made the Final Four in basketball one time. And in 2 years, we have one in the championship game.
Yeah, no, I definitely feel, Bill, that's exactly it. That's what I've been saying here on the show, is that anybody could beat anybody. We got to remember this for next year. But Miami's had a lot of success against ranked opponents, including these 3 back-to-back-to-back wins: Texas A&M, Ohio State, and Ole Miss, all inside the top 10. Really impressive. Let's also close the book on Trinidad Chambliss, Bill. He said he wants to come back for another season at Mississippi. NIL paving the way for this. Millions of dollars, of course, is what they could probably pay him. But is he making a mistake, Bill? Is he going to change course here? He's played well enough to be drafted, I would assume.
I like him as a first-round quarterback. And I know that seems presumptuous. I know who's coming out: Fernando Mendoza, possibly Dante Moore, but I think he would be in the discussion as a first-round quarterback. You see the dynamic arm talent, right? Throwing the ball down the football field, and he did that again last night. And you see kind of the clutch gene in the fourth quarter. It's really good. I mean, he takes them down for the game-winning touchdowns, puts them in position to get one last throw, and the mobility on top of all of that, and when to use it. He just had a fantastic playoff. I don't fault him for going back to school, but I mean, this is the time you could cash in. I would take him in the first round of the NFL draft. And I don't know, size and you get picked apart at the combine. Right. I'm just going off what I'm seeing on the field. It's pretty darn good.
Yeah, and on top of it, Bill, by the time the combine starts, usually quarterbacks don't drop. Usually they rise. Now, for Shedeur Sanders, there's 10 other guys that we didn't think would go in the first round, and they do. And I would guess you're right about that. But Chambliss, very limited starting time, Ferris State, and then, about 10 games at Mississippi. So, yeah, it's a tough decision for him. I'm sure it's not fully made. Okay, let's make a decision on tonight's game. Oregon takes on Indiana. So the Hoosiers are 3.5-point favorites, total 48.5. Hoosiers have been, probably to this point, fair to say, the best team in college football this season. I mean, they beat Ohio State. Miami beat Ohio State. But Oregon has been battle-tested, man. They just keep going on the road and coming out with wins. And Dan Lanning has had this experience before. Kurt Cignetti has not. You have a position in tonight's game.
It's a tough call. From what I'm hearing, there's going to be a heavy Indiana presence there. So, is that a home field advantage with the shorter trip? Not a home field, but a crowd advantage, so to speak. I think it's really going to come down to Fernando Mendoza and Dante Moore, who doesn't make the mistakes. Oregon's running back room is thin. Indiana, if they can run the football like they normally do, Oregon could be in a little bit of trouble. Rematches are tricky, though. This playoff has shown that with Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, Georgia. Will this game follow that same trend? I picked Indiana to win and cover the 3.5. I think they've played at a higher level, but you're giving Dan Lanning and Oregon a lot of time to make up for those mistakes they made in that 30-20 loss back at Autzen Stadium on October 11th. It could go either way. I'll give the slight lean to the Hoosiers.
And Oregon's first trip to the college football semifinal since 2014. I know that they have played previously, and Indiana did beat Oregon back in October 30-20. It's really incredible when you think about that. The Hoosiers have the second most losses in the history of college football's FBS. Northwestern 7-18. So you mentioned something, I think that's interesting, and I saw a lot of folks on social media commenting this on last night when Chambliss has had the games that he's had. Mendoza, do you think, Bill, that he has to have a great semis and finals to convince people that he's worthy of being the number one pick? Because I think, to be honest, it does feel, fairly or not, like he is the number one overall pick by default. Just the fact that he is the best of what's coming out this season. There isn't necessarily a consensus number one pick. It's just he has looked the best. Is that fair?
I mean, I think, yeah. I mean, things can change, barring an unforeseen collapse tonight. Even if he plays poorly, I think he would still have the go ahead on the combine. I mean, he's got good size, he's accurate. When I talked to Trent Green about him earlier this year, not like a out of this world arm, but good enough to play in the league and be successful. And it's almost like Tim Tebow, like the qualities he has off the field, right? We're just marveling at what a good kid he is and how much of a team player is and how not distracted he is by things on his phone. So I think he checks a lot of boxes as a franchise quarterback at the next level. Really impressed with how he played in the Rose Bowl, threw 3 touchdowns to 3 different receivers, has that leadership. I don't, you never know. Things can change based on one game, but Dante Moore, and like I said, if Chambliss were to come out, I think it becomes a more interesting conversation.
I agree. So, all right, Bill, before we wrap up, national championship game, Miami, and you do believe it will be Indiana. If these two teams match up, who do you think would win?
Well, I mean, Indiana will be favored, but you're playing Miami in that environment with the way that they've played with that defense. They had some injuries in that defense they would need to heal. That's a 50-50 game, in my opinion. Right off the rip, that hypothetical line of around 5 or 6 points looks too high to me. I think that would be about a field goal game.
Agreed. All right, Bill, have a great weekend. Thanks again for coming on. We'll talk again next week.
Hey, sounds good. Thank you.
Bill Bender of Sporting News joining us. We'll take a quick time out and be back with more when we return next. We dive into the latest matchups in the National Football League in the Sound Off. Don't go away. Maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Loop, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
They have one more win than Chicago, and they literally beat Chicago in Week 17, and yet the Niners are on the road and the Bears are at home. Why? Because of an outdated rule that says, well, winning your division is the holy grail. Rewarding an 8-win division winner with a home playoff game is like giving the corner office to the guy who won the office fantasy pool instead of the guy who actually closed the accounts all year.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
It's going to open up Pandora's box. But I will say this. I do believe players that sign now, like Najee, should not be eligible now, but should have to sit out and come back in next year. It's just a slippery slope. And I agree with people like Tom Izzo. I don't like it at all.
College basketball today. Only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Boy, we got some great NFL matchups coming up this weekend, including Saturday night and Sunday night as well. So let's get right to them. We'll preview Packers and Bears, Jacksonville, Buffalo, and the Chargers pull off an upset in New England. Time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. All right, now here's the bottom line. You got two teams that know each other very well. Are we in for a classic low-scoring game between the Packers and Bears? Certainly seems possible, but can you even look back on games that were played earlier in a season and take things away to think that that could transpire again in the NFL playoffs? Well, here's Jordan Love, quarterback of the Packers, thoughts on playing the Bears already twice and now doing it for a third time.
Yeah, no, I think it's something to look at, but at the end of the day, playoffs come around, everybody starts 0-0. You got to find a way to go win that week. And, I think you look back 2023, we're trying to win every game just to get into playoffs. And, I think that momentum might have helped carry us over. But at the end of the day, 0-0, you gotta go out there, play your best ball and execute and find ways to win that first one and then get rolling. No, definitely. The intensity of playoff games definitely amps up. And, like I mentioned, it's win or go home. Everybody knows what's at stake. I think going into it, playing a team that, it's going to be our third time playing them, third matchup. So the intensity will be there, the emotions will be there, and it's a rivalry game and a playoff game at the same time. So everything will be there.
Jordan, what do you take from the last game when you did play against the Bears? What's kind of the key for the offense heading into this matchup?
Yeah, the key for us as offense is scoring points when we get in the red zone. I think that's something that we didn't do as good of a job of in the last game. I think we've put some good drives together. We've executed, but we just got to find a way to score touchdowns when we get down there.
Meanwhile, the Buffalo Bills, if they're going to eventually get to a Super Bowl, they're going to have to do it on the road this time around. And this Sunday, it goes through the Jacksonville Jaguars. Josh Allen, of course, up for yet another challenge, is certainly looking forward to potentially going on the road and winning, albeit as a slight favorite.
I wouldn't say I prepare any differently. I wouldn't say I take the game any differently. I think that maybe there's an emphasis on each drive a little more, and just knowing that every single drive matters in the playoffs, especially when you're going against good teams and good quarterbacks like we're going against this week. Points are at a premium. Being okay with living in, taking some easy ones. Joe kind of had me self-scout myself throughout the year this last week. And I came away obviously just like, God, there's so much out there that I've missed, right? Whether it's getting a little lazy with my feet and not taking a check down and maybe instead trying to force something downfield, or throwing the ball away, not taking sacks and allowing us to be in field goal range. And, there's still so much room to improve. And I think I just have this extra emphasis, like I said, on points are at a premium in the playoffs and just trying to do everything I can to give us points.
Meanwhile, the Los Angeles Chargers have to go on the road on Sunday night and visit the New England Patriots. Has been one of the best teams in the NFL all season. Justin Herbert, speaking of challenges, knows that he's got to go on the road and win in a really hostile environment. But Herbert's Chargers certainly have earned the position to get there, and he talked about the challenge.
Yeah, they're really good. They're hardly ever out of position, and it's a sign of players that play by the rules and listen to great coaches, and they play together. They play fast and they communicate really well, and they're a really good defense. They're kind of different teams. Every year, coaches change, players change, and they're not the same team they were last year. They were. It was late in the year last year, so you could watch it, but it's not entirely the same. And they're playing different football now, so you turn on the tape and you see a completely different team. And I think their most recent games are probably more important to watch. I think you just treat everyone as they come, and our focus is on this game and against a really good Patriots team. And so we have to do everything we can to watch as much film on them, be prepared, have a good week of practice to be able to handle them.
Coming up next, we dive into the latest on the sports prediction markets with guess who? Sam McQuillan joins us from Legal Sports Report right after the break. You're watching NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Make sure you download the SportsGrid app. It can get you all caught up on news, notes, and information, and also stream our shows live 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The SportsGrid app is free and updated for both iOS and Android. The SportsGrid app also lets you track all of your bets via the app. Just take out your phone, scan that QR code, and you are all set, especially for this big weekend of both college and pro football as well. Up next, as I mentioned, Sam McQuillan joins us. We'll find out how many people are downloading the Kalshi app. And spoiler alert, it's a lot. We'll be back with more right after this.
K-Dubs has to go back to his roots. I'm not a Jets fan, I'm not a Giants fan, and neither one of those teams even play in New York. But I'm a New Yorker through and through, despite where my mail gets sent. And I will not stand for the Jets to be dragged through the mud in this way. Not gonna happen. So Dante Moore, if you do leave, you should be so lucky to fly the plane.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Who are we looking at? We're looking at SGA because of his availability and consistency. It's Jalen Brunson due to his usage and his leadership. It's Jaylen Brown for how they're playing. It's Cade Cunningham because Detroit's in the top of the East. The MVP talk is going to be wild, and it'll be interesting to watch. MVPs just don't dominate. They survive the season.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Loop, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
The Steelers get their touchdown, and they miss the extra point. It was Lamar Jackson who made the plays to get the Ravens into what should have been easy field goal territory. So explain to me how in the world we can look at last night's game as, well, there you go, can't trust Lamar Jackson.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Sam McQuillan is with us from Legal Sports Report with the very latest on prediction markets, partners, etc., and some sports gaming news as well. Sam, great to have you back here as we close out the week. Let's get started and discuss prediction markets. We know a team in the National Hockey League started a partnership last week, which sort of led to, I think, our next story now. Prediction markets, at least in the NHL, seem to be okay for the time being. I'm noticing nothing from the NBA, nothing from Major League Baseball, nothing from the National Football League. They already have their partners here. So why can the NHL jump into this and some of the other sports cannot for the time being?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Craig. We now have two major NHL teams with the Chicago Blackhawks first partnering with Kalshi, and now the New York Rangers partnering with Polymarket to partner with these prediction market apps, which, as you mentioned, Craig, the other leagues have pretty much come out against, at least so far. You had back last year, the NBA and the MLB both wrote letters to the CFTC, basically telling them that these prediction markets, which exist outside of the framework of normal sports betting apps, which both leagues are obviously partnered with, calling them sort of a threat to the game's integrity because they lack all of these, safeguards that sports books are supposed to have and are required of sports books, and is one of the reasons that we had legalization and a whole regulation process. But the NHL now, with two teams partnering with these apps, the latest Polymarket, and the league itself, I should mention, is actually partnered with Polymarket and Kalshi as well, the whole NHL. So very different when you have the MLB and the NBA, and the NFL as well has come out against them, saying that, we're going to kind of wait and see what happens here. Could be a good opportunity, but the NHL obviously diving in. I would have to think it's, one of the ways the NHL is just looking to expand. It's obviously, not as popular a league as those other leagues, or you certainly think of it after you think of the NBA or the NFL. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how these partnerships first start with these teams. And, the Rangers are obviously owned by the same guy who owns the Knicks. You don't know if, working with the one team or group or organization will bleed out to other things. But, in the meantime, you have companies like Kalshi are crossing over $1 billion in volume every week, with most of it on sports. You've had FanDuel and DraftKings launching their own prediction market products as well. You had companies like ESPN interested in getting with it in the space. You now have Dow Jones, which owns the Wall Street Journal, partnering with Polymarket as well this past week. So these partnerships are becoming more common, especially in the news space and now in the sports space as well. It's just kind of another way these prediction markets are seeking to legitimize themselves as, lawsuits and regulation kind of slodges, and, we wait for that to kind of all play out. It's just another kind of example of how they're kind of trying to work with these teams and organizations to, create higher visibility and kind of legitimize themselves.
Bet Rivers right now trying to survive in the sports betting space, Sam, as honestly a lot of the sports betting operators are. I mean, it can't be good for a lot of these, let's say, 5th place, 6th place sports betting operators that prediction markets are just in this business and jumping so far ahead. Quite frankly, I'm surprised that those sports betting operators have not pushed back on the prediction markets at all. Or maybe they have, we just don't know.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. You have companies like Bet Rivers, they've been aligned with Caesars, and BetMGM is kind of fighting these prediction markets, while companies like DraftKings and FanDuel, which have historically been at odds with those other, legacy kind of casino operators, they kind of said, screw it, we'll join in and create our own prediction markets if this is going to be the case. And it is interesting when you talk about 5th, 6th place operators, Bet Rivers, which we'll talk about in a sec, not even in that list. They're outside of the top 10 in sports betting app downloads this entire year. So even smaller than that, this week they had to raise their minimum wager size in Illinois from $1 to $5, which we've seen a number of sports betting apps in the state do, responding to the Illinois tax hikes over the past years, with either adding a 25 to 50 cent fee per bet onto every bet, which FanDuel and DraftKings did, and then Bet Rivers as well. So it now has the 2nd highest minimum in the state, behind Circa, which is marketed to sports bettors who want to put down more money and avoid being limited and get better lines, that sort of thing, less of the casual bettor. So pretty notable that Bet Rivers would kind of join that landscape, when Bet Rivers itself has been wanting to attract the casual bettor. But the story here is the Illinois sports books have really been hit hard by all these tax hikes. And, just this past week, you had Chicago add another tax hike on top of it as well, where now they have to pay a 40% tax rate for the highest books, and as well as the per bet cent fee, as well as a 10.25% tax from Chicago. Since the new taxes were all enacted, the bets on Bet Rivers are actually down 32% year over year. That's just in the months of September and October combined, because those are the only months we have available with the tax rate and the information. And bets overall are down 16%. So Bet Rivers basically hit twice as hard as the rest of the market, again, trying to survive in a really tough landscape. We'll see if it changes its minimum rate. It's not necessarily set. Depending on what the new Chicago tax does to its books and numbers, it could go up, it could go down. We could even see Bet Rivers leave the state. So I agree with your point, Craig. It'll be really interesting to see what these smaller kind of tier 2 or tier 3 sports betting operators do in the face of these enormous tax hikes, and obviously in the face of new competition from prediction markets as well.
One way that some of the operators can make money is through iGaming over at LegalSportsReport.com. You could read this story about Virginia trying to get them back on the table. Certainly looking for other options, Sam, aren't they?
Yeah, Virginia is one of a number of states that opened their legislative sessions this week, weighing a new iGaming bill. Virginia, like many other states, New York, Indiana, has pretty much tried for years, or people in Virginia have tried for years, to legalize these online casino games, blackjack, slot. These things that you mentioned, Craig, really are where the sports books can actually make money. The sports book typically holds about 10 to 12% on sports bets, and then when it's with online casino games, it's much closer to 50%, 60%. So this is a thing that the legacy operators have really wanted legalized for years. It's taken a very long time. It's only legal in 7 states, but now coming back up in Virginia, it got pretty close last year actually, but just ran into time constraints, which you're always going to have in a state legislature, in the federal legislature for that matter. iGaming might seem like a popular topic with constituents or lawmakers, but at the end of the day, they have a ton of other things they have to manage as well. So Virginia now weighing it. Maine just legalized it this morning, in fact. So we now have 8 states where it's going to be legal. So we're starting to see momentum with iGaming. You got to wonder if that's something that sportsbooks will be able to push more successfully now that they have prediction markets as a threat, now that they have taken care of kind of sweepstakes with a bunch of bills throughout the legislatures over the past year as well. And you have, quite frankly, have less states to focus on legalizing sports betting. You have 38, 39 states now. A lot of their lobbying time could be spent more on iGaming, which again is the real end game for the sports betting operators, beyond prediction markets, beyond fantasy, beyond whatever else we're going to talk about throughout these next couple of months.
Yeah, Sam, I noticed today on social media you did post just a quick post about how many folks are downloading sports betting apps and prediction markets as well. I know you just did this, so I don't want to throw something out there that you can't handle, but I did see FanDuel, DraftKings 1 and 2, one or the other. I saw Kalshi number 3. Isn't that kind of telling a story as to where people are headed?
It's definitely telling the story as to what people are downloading and what's really capturing interest. Kalshi now third with 3.4 million downloads during the NFL season behind DraftKings and FanDuel. It's definitely telling the story that people are interested. Polymarket isn't fully relaunched yet, so you don't know what those kind of numbers would look like. And it'll be really interesting going forward to see, it's now third place. Does it keep that spot? Can it retain? Can it actually make money doing this, as opposed to just getting people to download the app and become a really popular kind of marketing or social media presence? You got to wonder how much money they're actually making, and whether or not, of course, they're here to stay with all the CFTC stuff pending. So an interesting development, but we'll keep watching it for the rest of the year for sure.
Sam, thanks for coming on. Have a great weekend. Appreciate it.
You too. Thanks, Craig.
John Lafayette up next on the line.
OK Dubs has to go back to his roots. I'm not a Jets fan, I'm not a Giants fan, and neither one of those teams even play in New York. But I'm a New Yorker through and through, despite where my mail gets sent. And I will not stand for the Jets to be dragged through the mud in this way. Not gonna happen. So Dante Moore, if you do leave, you should be so lucky to fly the plane.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Who are we looking at? We're looking at SGA because of his availability and consistency. It's Jaylen Brown to do his usage and his leadership. It's Jaylen Brown for how they're playing. It's Cade Cunningham because Detroit's in the top of the East. The MVP talk is going to be wild, and it'll be interesting to watch. MVPs just don't dominate. They survive the season.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Loop, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
The Steelers get their touchdown, and they miss the extra point. It was Lamar Jackson who made the plays to get the Ravens into what should have been easy field goal territory. So explain to me how in the world we can look at last night's game as, well, there you go, can't trust Lamar Jackson.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. John Lafayette makes his weekly visit with us from the Measure to talk about some of the media in sports and a very big year incoming, John, for NBC Sports, the Olympics, Major League Baseball games, NBA broadcasts. It just seems like 2025, 2026 sports could potentially be dominated by NBC. They made a big announcement. Of course, they've got the NBA All-Star Game as well, the Super Bowl. What am I missing, John, with NBC? Seems like they're doing it all.
They're not missing anything. They say they have about 40% of the live programming that's going to be appearing for the next year, and it's concentrated mostly in February, where they have the biggest of the biggest events. The Olympics are right around the corner, and NBC says they're sold out of their advertising on Peacock and the NBC Sports Network and on NBC, the broadcast network. They're talking about record revenue. That's probably about $1 billion or north of that, because the last Olympics in Beijing was like not really well watched, and that one generated $900 million worth of advertising. NBC says they've got like 100 new advertisers coming in, and the popularity of live sports has never been more evident. You got 75 advertisers who were specifically in there to bring more live sports to the fore, and they're able to take in more and more dollars because with streaming, they're able to accommodate smaller advertisers who want smaller packages with ads that have slightly smaller price tags. So between all of that kind of stuff, it's just a bonanza for NBC, and they're going to be raking it all in.
And so, John, I think the two big events, most likely when you consider sports, would be the Super Bowl and the Winter Olympics. They just had a presentation talking about those two. What do you think they will look like come next month?
Well, they're going to pull out all the bells and whistles they possibly can, over these 17 days. For the Olympics, which are taking place in Italy, they're going to be doing more live programming, even though it's in Italy. So you're going to see big events like the ice skating finals, which is, usually the highest rated thing. It's going to come in and they're going to do it live on in the afternoon on NBC. They're going to do the highlights again in prime time, but the ability for people to watch, to get more people to watch live, not just on Peacock, not just on the website, but on NBC, is a big change for NBC. They're going to be adding all kinds of features. They're going to have ringside cameras so that people can pick what they want to see, which skaters they want to see, which hockey players they want to follow. They're going to have prediction games. They're going to have Olympic picks games. They're going to have trivia games so that people can get involved. They're coming back with the Gold Zone, which is sort of like the NFL has, where you're able to whip around and see what's happening at the various venues. And NBC is also going to be looking to try to get closer and closer to the athletes. In the Winter Olympics, people are wearing goggles, they're wearing helmets, so they're trying to get more video from places where the athletes are getting ready so we can get to know them a little bit better. They're also going to be doing more drone shots to be able to get closer to the venues. And they're also miking up guys on the hockey teams, the men's and women's, and they're going to be miking up some of the skiers. So you can see what they're doing as they're getting ready for their runs, saying their little prayers, their little mantras, their little performance things to try to get themselves ready as they go down the thing. All of this is designed to sort of bring people into the events, make them feel closer to the athletes, understand their stories, which is really what NBC is all about. NBC is also bringing in Stanley Tucci, who's an expert on food in Italy for people who are interested in that. And of course, you're going to have Snoop Dogg all over the place. Everybody loves Snoop Dogg when it comes to this stuff. And NBC has not been messing around. They've been promoting these Olympics for a year and a half. And, they're not going to mess around. They want as many people to possibly watch these things as possible. And like you said, speaking of watching, more people watching than ever before, the Super Bowl is going to probably break a record when that comes around. In the middle of the month, Mike Tirico is going to be running from California back to Italy to be able to anchor both of those events. And then, like you said, you got the NBA All-Star Game. NBC is going to be really, really busy in February. And then once February, then baseball season is coming up too. And they just announced their schedule. And of course, what we're going to see is you're going to see Cardinals, Cubs on Sunday night. You're going to see Yankees, Red Sox on a Sunday night. You're going to see Yankees and Dodgers on Sunday night. What you're not going to see is the White Sox. As a Chicago fan, what can I say? NBC also has a special thing coming up the day after the 4th of July. They're going to have their Star Spangled Sunday. They're going to have all 15 Major League Baseball games exclusively on Peacock and NBC. And there's going to be a whip around show that people can catch the highlights. They're going to be pulling out all the stops for baseball when baseball season comes. So, NBC Sports really got it all going on, and they're keeping themselves really busy.
Yeah, John, the one thing that we'll see soon, and I think most fans would question, would be the NBA All-Star Game. Obviously, it feels like and it sounds like a big deal, but it is the one event through the years that has really declined in terms of interest. The All-Star game, the dunk contest, the three-point contest, etc. Does NBC have any plans to try and make this more watchable or entertaining? Because they've tried so many different things through the years. None of them have been successful.
You heard them on air. Dunk champions Vince Carter and Tracy McGrady have talked about trying to encourage more high-profile players to participate in these events. The All-Star game has been hard to watch because there's no defense and people it looks like a playground game. So they've tried to turn it into a round-robin tournament where they're going to play the American players against the international players to try to get the level of intensity up. Sort of like they do in the Olympics, where you really see some hard-fought games, and then moving a lot of the stuff to NBC from cable is also going to probably ramp up the interest a little bit. So we'll see what happens. It's a tough challenge getting these All-Star games up and running.
Yeah, I would agree. And John, last thing for you here for the opening of the Olympics. Does NBC have anything special planned? Because usually there are people who just check in for that and then check out the rest of the way.
I'm sure they will. They're going to have the celebrities out. They're going to have the big parades and all that kind of thing. It's always a lot of fun to do the Parade of the Nations, and that's what you're right. People tune in for that. They want to see the outfits. They want to see the weather. And to me, it's just fascinating. Everybody videotaping themselves. All of the athletes are always waving to themselves, taking pictures because they're taking in that atmosphere too. It's not just for the spectators. It's also for the athletes themselves being part of that parade and being part of that spectacle. It's a highlight of their career before they get to do all of the actual competition.
All right, John, have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
They have one more win than Chicago, and they literally beat Chicago in Week 17, and yet the Niners are on the road and the Bears are at home. Why? Because of an outdated rule that says, well, winning your division is the holy grail. Rewarding an 8-win division winner with a home playoff game is like giving the corner office to the guy who won the office fantasy pool instead of the guy who actually closed the accounts all year.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Loop, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
It's going to open up Pandora's box. But I will say this. I do believe players that sign now, like Najee, should not be eligible now, but should have to sit out and come back in next year. It's just a slippery slope. And I agree with people like Tom Izzo. I don't like it at all.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Our weekly visit with Brady Cannon is upon us. Starting next week, it will be golf-related, but we close the book on contest season in both college and pro football. Brady, great to have you back here on NewsWire. And, certainly the contests are over for the season. A lot of money handed out. Look, you're in Vegas. I'm sure you have a bigger sense as to how this went. Did the folks chop it up? Was there one winner? Let's kind of go through the contest here because I'm always curious how these stories complete.
Yeah, a thrilling weekend for so many people. And I remember it well, 15 years ago now. But Circa Sports Million coin hop wins. And this is kind of unusual, Craig. One with a winning percentage of 67%. I mean, obviously that's tremendous, but it seems like these days the modern bar is now 70%. So, I think that gives people hope out there that you can beat 6,000 people with hitting 67%. One in a tiebreaker. He had 15 winning weeks, won the tiebreaker over Bison Sports Cards to get the blue blazer there at Circa Sports Million. The Westgate Super Contest Biff's Almanac won it with a percentage of 68%. And Integrity Alert finished tied for 5th on 3 separate entries in the Super Contest and also won the Super Contest Gold. So a big season for Integrity Alert. But Circa Survivor, it's always so intriguing and so wild down the stretch. There were 6 live entries going into the final week. And Dylan W. had the Falcons for a winner. Gary A. had the Patriots for a winner. Juicy Coochie and Kick Your Knees Up both had the Vikings. And then Real Bro had the Jaguars. 18.7 million in the pot. 5 of them win. They split 3.74 million. But the one unlucky contestant there, the 6 out of the 5, only one didn't make it. Parts 1 had the hard luck loss with the Cincinnati Bengals falling to their division opponent, the Cleveland Browns. And get this, I told you I had a good story for you. This is the second year, this poor guy, Parts 1, the second year in a row they went 19-1 and lost in the last final week of Circa Survivor. I don't know how someone's heart takes that. To go through it once is tough. To lose on the final week 2 seasons in a row, oh my goodness. Now, from what I understand, this person was pretty well hedged and made a nice chunk of change. But boy, to come so close and not have your hands on the trophy, so to speak, that is brutal.
Yeah. It is. So before we go any further, just give me a yes or no that yes or no, the team name of one of the people who won, Biff's Almanac. You know what that refers to? Yes or no? Don't give me the answer. Brady has no idea. Oh my God. Frank, our producer, Frank, do you know what Biff's Almanac refers to? Do you know? Yes or no? Luke does. Our director, Luke, I was going to you next. Okay. Frank has no idea. If it has nothing to do with the Yankees, he doesn't know. So, Brady, I am very upset with you, my friend. How do you not know what this refers to? You have to have seen Back to the Future 2. Come on, man. Come on. You honestly have not seen those movies?
I'm an old movie guy. If it was black and white, I'd probably know. But I've seen Back to the Future.
Wow.
I've seen Back to the Future, but boy, that was a long time.
It's the Almanac. It's Gray's. I think it's called Gray's, right, Luke? Gray's Sports Almanac.
Right.
That Biff gets to go and change the whole future in the second Back to the Future movie.
That's
Brady,
cool.
Come on, man.
I'm sorry. I'll be better next time.
Very disappointed.
Hey, you learn something new every day, right?
Well, now you know in the future, but weren't you just kind of questioning what the heck is that? Anyway, let's get to golf. Scotty Scheffler in a couple of weeks. Brady is our golf expert here on the show. He'll be with us all throughout golf season. Starting next week, we'll start to preview some of the upcoming matches. What do we have in store for this season? Is Scotty just going to be a monster favorite every week? Is that the way we're headed here?
I read something that he put a new driver in his bag from TaylorMade, and he's gained 3.3 miles an hour of head swing speed or whatever like that. And it's just geez, yeah, rich getting richer. So it's unfortunate this week that we're not starting the season in Kapalua, Maui, like we usually do. There were drought conditions going on there. They canceled the event back in October. I'm hearing the course is fine. So we'll start up for real next week with the Sony Open on Oahu, Waialae Country Club. Ought to be a good one. It's a very good field. Not Scotty. Scotty will be at the American Express in La Quinta, California the following week. But I'm also hearing rumblings that the tour is considering canceling both Hawaii events moving forward, which is really a shame. But we'll be back to celebrate the Sony Open at Waialae next week, Craig, and see if we can get off and running with golf season this year.
Brady is fantastic with these golf picks every week. You got to make sure you catch him here on the show. Brady, have a good weekend. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, my friend.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
They have one more win than Chicago, and they literally beat Chicago in Week 17, and yet the Niners are on the road and the Bears are at home. Why? Because of an outdated rule that says, well, winning your division is the holy grail. Rewarding an 8-win division winner with a home playoff game is like giving the corner office to the guy who won the office fantasy pool instead of the guy who actually closed the accounts all year.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Loop, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
It's going to open up Pandora's box. But I will say this. I do believe players that sign now, like Najee, should not be eligible now, but should have to sit out and come back in next year. It's just a slippery slope. And I agree with people like Tom Izzo. I don't like it at all.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
All right, great to have Mike Blewett back in the house. He's so pumped up. See, Mike, I tell you last week here on the show, you were a little skeptical. You were a little skeptical of me. I understand. I mean, anybody who picks the Jaguars at the beginning of the season to go to the Super Bowl, you should be skeptical about. But here we are, by the way. I told you and I'm not an I told you guy. I know we have a lot of SportsGrid people who are I told you people. I'm not one of those people. But I did tell you to have faith in your Steelers last week. And you did with the spread. You did. That was the right call. But let's be honest, we never could have seen that play out. Mike, I would ask you this before we get to all the games this week. Mike's a big Steelers fan, is what I'm alluding to here. In your history of watching the Steelers, and I've watched a lot of them too with Big Ben, even going back. I'm old enough to remember those early '80s teams too. I would say top 5 Steelers, second half of all time. There, it had to be top 5.
Second half, incredibly dramatic. That was more satisfying than playoff wins that I've witnessed. So that was incredible. A big comeback. Very dramatic fourth quarter. Look, we had a college game last night that was incredible. We had a Sunday night football game that was incredible. Really, the last 2 primetime football games that we've witnessed were awesome fourth quarters and second halves. It obviously was a dicey moment for any Steelers fan when they're down 10-0 and they just can't move the ball, but they got it together. They played defense at the right time. Kyle Hamilton goes out. It allowed them to do a little bit more offensively, and now they get DK Metcalf back for this matchup on Monday night, where they are historically excellent at home on Monday night. So we'll see how they do. But we have a right to take the points. You probably have a little bit more faith in them to win the game. And clearly a lot has played out in Baltimore since that loss.
Yeah, definitely so, with the Harbaugh firing, et cetera. I mean, look, there's no guarantees betting on sports, or else none of us folks would be here. So when you see somebody say that, they're full of it. But I would tell you this: Ravens, Steelers, take those points. You probably will win more than you lose. That's as far as I could go with it. I'm not going to go any percentage wise, but you probably would do that. So now let's get with Mike here because he's getting ready for the upcoming weekend. I think it's going to be a fantastic weekend of football. And Mike, you can catch here on SportsGrid breaking it all down. So historically speaking, and I don't know that this will play out, Mike, but I guess I will ask you. Historically speaking, teams that are getting 7 or more points this weekend of the NFL playoffs win more than they lose and cover more than they lose. Now, I'm not telling you to take the plus 460 here on the Panthers, but certainly if I'm going to look one way to it based on track record, I'm going to tell you that the Panthers are the team that I guess that the odds makers would tell you to side with. They're getting 10.5. The total is 46.5. I understand the Panthers are not a great football team. They win, they lose, they win, they lose, they cover, they don't, they cover, they don't. So what's in store this week? Total 46.5. Panthers are at home. I know the crowd, they don't talk about that at all. They're going to be fired up for this, Mike. Like this, they haven't had a home playoff game in a long time, too.
Yeah, and I would say that generally, I think that's the stats that you're talking about and then the trends that we're talking about are spot on. But I'm curious to see, because I think everybody's always trying to figure out, well, what's the trend that I can bank on? And the one you stated is an excellent one. But these two teams did play not all that long ago, and we saw Carolina come out on top. So do you think that Carolina might have a little bit of a solution to the Rams' offensive attack in creating these turnovers? Or do you think the Rams are going to come in focused on what they did wrong last time? You had a fluky fumble by Stafford at the end of the game, but a couple of bad interceptions, frankly, very uncharacteristic for his play this year, which was at an MVP level. So we talk about it a lot every Friday. How can you approach this without having to lay 10.5 points on the road? And I would take the first half. The Rams are a very good first half team, and their first half total, team total, is 14.5. That's a pretty tricky number, to be honest. You need 3 scores in the first half. They did it last week. We hit the over. They've done it quite a bit this year. So you could play the alternate line of 13.5 if you want to get there.
Right.
I'm laying 6.5 in the first half. I think the Rams get off to a good start and establish a win here. But it's fair to have trepidation about laying 10.5. So I break it down. I like the first half. I think they get off to a good start. I can't imagine that Bryce Young is throwing punches with Matt Stafford for the entirety of the game, but he did do it last time out, and Stafford's turnovers were huge in that loss.
You know, I mean, the fun part about it is that we can agree or disagree. I completely disagree. I think the Panthers have a great shot to win this game. I just think this. I can't believe that anybody is a more than a 7-point favorite in the NFL playoffs based on what I
think that's fair.
I just can't. I mean,
they beat them. They beat them, Craig.
Yeah, I think the line is egregious. Packers and Bears going into Saturday night. The line tells the story here for me, which is why I probably would lay the points with the Packers if it's 1.5 or 1, whatever it is, total 44.5. Because the odds makers sometimes, Mike, they tell us a story. I mean, the Packers were not as good as the Bears this season. I mean, let's just call it what it is. Packers haven't gotten anything from Jordan Love lately. Josh Jacobs hasn't looked like the same running back lately. Their receivers have not played well lately, and everything is going right for the Bears with the exception of this past week. But when I see a point spread like this, I'm like, what am I missing?
Yeah, granted, week 18 was Packers kind of taking the week off. They knew they were going to be the 7 seed, but it's more disturbing than that. It's the way that their defense got run over by the Ravens a couple of weeks back. That was a massive red flag. They've obviously lost Micah Parsons now. I bet the Packers to be in the Super Bowl at the beginning of the year. I really the Bills were absolutely my AFC pick. I sort of hedged between the Eagles and the Packers, so I have futures out there on both teams to play the Bills. So I understand the Packers having a shot here, but that is, as you said, the spread tells a story. It's very curious, especially the Packers. You could argue of all of the teams, the 14 teams in the playoffs, the Packers are playing the worst right now. Maybe the Panthers, but the Panthers did get a win big win a couple of weeks back. They couldn't close it against the Bucs in a sloppy game. but the Packers are playing really bad defensively, which is kind of a calling card at points during the year. Do they have the Bears number? I don't know. They blew the game against the Bears a couple of weeks, about a month ago, and they dominated them in that later season game, that sort of post-Thanksgiving game. Packers are really dominant. Can we get that version of the Packers? That remains to be seen. I think I'll stick with my futures bet and take the Packers here, but the Bears are playing better football overall to me.
Yeah, I had Packers going to the Super Bowl. I'll stick with that, but I had Jaguars too, so I'm going to stick with that as well. They're getting 1.5 against the Buffalo Bills. Total 51.5. Here's what I saw from the NFL this season, Mike, and I don't know if it plays out this way again. We backed the Chiefs up until the point where we figured we're making a mistake here, and they got knocked out. We backed the Ravens up until the point where it seemed eventually it's going to happen for them, and they got knocked out. So the last team standing amongst those three in the AFC are the Buffalo Bills. Is it a mistake to back them until they get knocked out against Jacksonville this week?
I think this is the most compelling game of the weekend. Niners and Eagles had some intrigue, but I'm really concerned with the way the Niners are playing, and sort of, especially last week against the Seahawks, it feels like they might be out of gas. We've been waiting for the other shoe to drop with the Niners. I think this is definitely the most compelling game. You've been on the Jaguars the whole year. They've hit 13 wins for the first time since the 90s. So a tremendous season for them. And I think Trevor Lawrence's play, especially his ability to run and create plays, could be very problematic for the Bills. There is no question the Jaguars have had a better season. The only game they lost, they're on a tremendous win streak right here, as is their divisional counterpart in Houston. But I have to back Josh Allen one more time. They were my Super Bowl pick. So I'm going to lay the 1.5 here and run with Josh Allen for one more game.
We'll go head-to-head on that, but we'll see what we feel about the rest of the NFL slate when we return next with Mike.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
They have one more win than Chicago, and they literally beat Chicago in Week 17, and yet the Niners are on the road and the Bears are at home. Why? Because of an outdated rule that says, well, winning your division is the holy grail. Rewarding an 8-win division winner with a home playoff game is like giving the corner office to the guy who won the office fantasy pool instead of the guy who actually closed the accounts all year.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Loop, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
It's going to open up Pandora's box. But I will say this. I do believe players that sign now, like Najee, should not be eligible now, but should have to sit out and come back in next year. It's just a slippery slope. And I agree with people like Tom Izzo. I don't like it at all.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Great to have Mike Blewett back as we break down the rest of the games in the National Football League ahead of the weekend. And then Mike will obviously put his money where his mouth is this weekend here on SportsGrid. But Mike sort of alluded to this one And this is one I do think we see eye to eye on, not because the point spread has jumped here, but because, as I've talked about here throughout the show, it feels to me like every team goes through their cycles throughout the season. The 49ers had that incredible cycle. I was really troubled watching them, though, play last week against Seattle. The Eagles are 4.5-point favorites, total 44.5. Somebody suggested on the show this week, and I actually liked it, maybe the under in this one, because I just don't think Philadelphia's offense is consistent enough, and I think San Francisco is at this point like a one or two trick pony. Like the only way I could see the 49ers winning this game outright, Mike, is if they get one of those Kittle games that happens like once a month. like it seems like when he's awesome, they win. McCaffrey's always pretty much awesome, but when he's awesome, they win. And I don't know if he's even 100% healthy. By the way, the backup is pretty good. Tongas, he's pretty good for them. But the Eagles' defense is really good. I'm worried about San Francisco a little bit.
Same. And here's the reality for the Niners. They have had year after year great closes to the season. The other night against the Seahawks, clearly not one of those moments. I've been waiting for their injuries to really come back to haunt them. They avoided that, any kind of collapse really, for the entirety of the season when they could have collapsed, losing big-time players like Warner and Bosa a really long time ago. And you alluded to the offense being banged up for a lot of the year, quarterback and everywhere else. But these are two flawed teams, very talented but flawed teams. And for anybody holding a Philadelphia Eagles futures ticket like myself, I have some doubt. But I've been comparing them this past week to the recent Chiefs teams, where, yes, we did see the explosive offense when Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce were all at the top of their games. But in subsequent years, they won by slowing the game down and making big plays on defense with Karlaftis and Chris Jones and others. So I think this Philadelphia Eagles defense is still good enough to grind out this type of win and possibly future wins. They could still get to the Super Bowl. The offense is ugly a lot of games, but when you have that kind of defensive line and the extreme talent that they have in the defensive backfield, it's hard. It's hard to move the ball on them. And if they have a game where Saquon and the offensive line is pushing the pile, it's going to be hard to make plays. You don't want to make desperation plays against this Philadelphia Eagles defense. It starts to unravel on you. And I would be concerned if I were a Niners fan. This is not a great matchup, in my opinion, for them. Excellently coached team, still a lot of talent out there, especially on offense. But I don't think this is a good matchup for the Niners. And I like the Eagles in this one. And to your point, I probably would play the under, maybe a 23-10 final here for the Eagles.
Yeah. And by the way, even if the Eagles don't cover this, maybe San Francisco's team total under is a way to go too. I don't see a lot of points there. Chargers and Patriots. Okay, I see this one different. Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern. I think anything goes in this one. Patriots have proven it all season long. Let's give them a ton of credit. Even whoever they beat in front of them, they blew them out pretty much. Total of 46.5 in this game. Harbaugh in this spot, probably good in a field goal type matchup. It could come down to the very end, in my opinion. But New England is at home. Great environment for them. Haven't had a home playoff game in a bit. What do you think about this one?
I think this one has the best chance to get a little out of control. And I'm not saying like a 24-point blowout or anything like that, but I think that these are two really good coaches matching up against one another. But I've been a broken record on this. The Chargers aren't really playing the way they want to play. They use a million different offensive line combinations, the most in the league this year. I think this is the type of game where the Pats can take advantage of that. And I know they don't necessarily have any household names on defense, but they have played really well. Only bugaboo there for them is red zone defense hasn't been great, but outside of that, excellent defensive statistics across the board. I think Mike Vrabel and Drake May in the offense get it done. I think they can pace the Chargers with, I think they can really control the ball with Stevenson and Henderson. I think they'll utilize everything that they have in order to keep the Chargers off the field and keep Herbert from making plays. He's obviously an explosive quarterback and can keep them in this. I just think this is a good matchup for the Patriots, and I like them to win. I'll lay the points here with the Patriots, no problem. I wouldn't even mind an alternate line up to 6.5.
All right, finally, on Monday Night Football, the Texans got off Saturday somehow here, Mike, because I guess Pittsburgh played Sunday night. They wanted to give them the extra day. Steelers are getting 3. They're always good in this spot, total of 38.5. To me, this is the toughest game on the board to call. I just don't know who's going to win this one, but I do think it'll be a close game right down to the end.
Yeah, I would just take the points here. Steelers haven't lost a Monday night game at home since 1991. Tomlin is excellent on Monday nights. He's excellent at home as an underdog. It may not seem pretty. I think there are some things about this matchup as a Steelers fan that could really scare you. Their ability to get after the quarterback, just rushing 4, and have Aaron Rodgers on the move. He used to be extremely adept at moving inside and out of the pocket. He's in his 40s. It's not as pretty as it once was. Getting DK Metcalf back, I think, allows the Steelers to play a little bit more how they want to play. But this is going to have to be the Steelers controlling with the run. They abandoned it against the Browns a couple of weeks ago, and even last week they threw the ball 47 times. It's going to have to be more Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell and them racking up carries. The loss of Darnell Washington and not having him as a 6th offensive lineman does hurt the Steelers. I think the Texans probably are the better team here, but I'd take the points with the Steelers. 38.5 is pretty low. They blew past it in the fourth quarter last week, but it wouldn't surprise me if this was a grinded out game, which means it could be close in the fourth quarter, Greg. Craig, we take the points.
Oh. It will be. All right, Mike, thanks again for coming on. Enjoy the weekend. We'll catch you this weekend here on SportsGrid. Wrap.
Who are we looking at? We're looking at SGA because of his availability and consistency. It's Jalen Brown to do his usage and his leadership. It's Jaylen Brown for how they're playing. It's Cade Cunningham because Detroit's in the top of the East. The MVP talk is going to be wild, and it'll be interesting to watch. MVPs just don't dominate. They survive the season.
Pro basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
The Steelers get their touchdown, and they miss the extra point. It was Lamar Jackson who made the plays to get the Ravens into what should have been easy field goal territory. So explain to me how in the world we can look at last night's game as, well, there you go, can't trust Lamar Jackson.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
Maybe the fact was that the kicker just blew a 44-yard field goal. Now, by the way, I feel horrible for this kid, Tyler Luke, who made every single field goal this season 44 yards or less. But the extra point that was missed just before that by Chris Boswell was the only extra point that he missed all season long. So did they bless that same holy water when Boswell missed the extra point? Come on, guys. Let's get it.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Well, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. It would appear that we saw one megastar traded in Trae Young, who's currently hurt right now. We could potentially see another. ESPN reports that for the first time since he joined the Memphis Grizzlies after being drafted, that Ja Morant could potentially be on the trade block. So we will see what ends up happening there. Could we see two stars like this moved even potentially before the All-Star break? I guess we'll have to stay tuned. Meanwhile, speaking of February, there's going to be an arbitration hearing that could potentially break a record. Also, a record-breaking deal for guess who? Al Michaels. And also, we'll get to the latest in the Buffalo Bills saga of a farewell to a stadium. How are they going to make some extra money off this? We'll tell you next. Time now for some last licks. Yesterday was arbitration day. Numbers exchanged in Major League Baseball, teams trying to come to an agreement on contracts for 2026. I was part of that equation yesterday, trying to figure out which Marlins were getting paid what. I don't know how much Tarek Skubal's going to get paid, but he's certainly asking for a lot. $32 million is the agent request for Skubal going into the upcoming season. The Detroit Tigers are willing to pay him $19 million for the upcoming season, so that means that they have an impasse and are going to head to salary arbitration. $13 million spread is the largest in salary arbitration history, and that will set up for a hearing in February. So I'm going to answer the question for you that some of you have. Why specifically did Skubal file for $32 million? The reason is because Juan Soto won at $31 million. And so in an agent's point of view, they want to ask and break a record if the arbiter decides to pay him $32 million. Sometimes they do agree to some number in between, but as of right now, it would appear this is going to be the final year that Skubal's going to play for the Tigers, because this is a huge discrepancy in terms of money. So we'll see where it ends up. My guess is somewhere in the middle. I don't know if he'll break Soto's record of $31 million, but the ask is currently $32. All right, so speaking of record-breaking, Al Michaels has been around for decades and decades calling sports, both on ABC and ESPN and NBC, and now on Prime Video. Al Michaels is confirmed to return to Prime Video for another season. That means at 81 years old, he will be streaming once again, along with most likely Herb Street on Prime Video for the upcoming 2026 NFL season. I know for some of you, some people think that, as they would say, that Al Michaels maybe has lost his fastball a little bit. I don't know. I mean, I don't make a huge deal about this sort of stuff. To me, in watching the games, kind of seems like the same Al Michaels to me. I know some people want more enthusiasm. Folks think that Mike Tirico maybe is better, even now that Al Michaels has left Sunday Night Football. But either way, he is a legend in the sport and has been calling games for, I believe, 50 years, if I'm not mistaken. NFL, baseball, football, basketball, etc. So congrats to Al Michaels. I would guess that this will be the final season that you see Al Michaels doing football games here in 2026. All right, finally, the Buffalo Bills are leaving Highmark Stadium. As you know, used to be called Rich Stadium as well, and they're going out in style. In fact, if you want to own a piece of Highmark Stadium, you could do it. And not just a piece. You could own a seat. You could own a piece of the turf. You potentially can own things that are from their internal restaurant. And one of the other things that you can have, and this is probably only popular in Buffalo, I would guess, is an actual urinal. That's right. Highmark Stadium is offering up things from the bathroom. I did not hear toilet, but I did hear urinal. So that means you can actually get one of these operational at the time in Buffalo at Highmark Stadium, most likely not operational in your house. And why in the world would anybody want something that people have urinated on for 40 years in their house? I'll have no idea. But yeah, you can buy anything that you want from the Buffalo Bills Stadium, which of course they will open up a brand new stadium next year. And my guess, folks, let me give you the prediction right now. Thursday Night Football is when the season opens next year, is going to be in Buffalo. They're going to be at home. And they're most likely, I would say, going to play up against the Super Bowl champion, who will go on the road. That would be my guess. All right, that'll do it for the show today and our week of shows. I'll be back with you guys 3 o'clock Eastern for Fantasy Sports today as we get ready for the playoffs. But also want to thank our guests here on the show today. Bill Bender was on from Sporting News, Sam McQuillan from Legal Sports Report, John Lafayette from The Measure, our very own Brady Cannon from SportsGrid, and of course Mike Blewett, who does a fantastic job each and every weekend here on SportsGrid on our in-game live shows. Thanks again to our director, Luke. For my producer, Frank, I'm Craig Mish. We'll see you back here Monday, and we'll preview Monday Night Football, right? We got Houston and Pittsburgh, so we will see you then. Enjoy the football this weekend, basketball, hockey, everything that you're following as well. Have a great one. See you then.